experience, and some other members are also going to share their experience before the program begins. Actually, the reason why we are holding this program is that often some friends and other research students approach you and ask you, about how you've been able to go through your academic work and how you've been, or your experience in research, how you organize your um, articles, and how you approach publication. So it's been a huge issue, not only here, but I think it is a common thing among research students. So I believe that this program is the right avenue for us to learn, to know, to share ideas, and also to encourage each other um, in how to approach our research life. So the NUGS union, the NUGS body organized this program to for its members, but then we saw that we are in an international community, so we saw it wise to open the floor for all the international body to join us, because we are one group, and we think if we all share the ideas, it will go a long way, and also to establish networking among us, because as researchers we need to create this strong networking through the sharing of ideas, and then also showcasing our um, um, research roadmaps. So this is basically the reason why we have this program. Like the MC said, that before the program begins, we want to allow some members to come and share their ideas, how they have been able to go through the seemingly hectic life of research. And I think that by so doing, we will be encouraged and also be ready for the main program to begin. So I'll leave the floor to the MC to begin the program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kluger Brown. And for me, I'm so happy to have you again on such a program as this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've just been joined by my um, other moderator, Dr. Obed Ashon Nati. So I would like to hand over to him, then he takes over. Please, Dr. Obed Nati, please, you can take over. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the honor due me and the honor done me, Della. Oh, sorry to call you that. Yeah. Oh, first of all, I would like to say a very big good evening to all Sandre who have gathered here for us to judge and see the way that we can excel academically and other aspects of our lives. Well, we have gathered and from around the best resources in the persons of the human capital to be able to give us this particular their experiences, what they've gone through, to share with us what they see and what they are seeing and what they shall see, so that we can equally, through their eyes and through their experiences, see how we can excel. With this, I would like to entreat all of us and indulge all of us to be able to take our pens and papers and books, notepads, whatever, and just jot something down. It may not help now, but I bet you that in the next minute, you'll find how important whatever we are going to say here is. Please, I will leave it here, and then my co-host will take up and introduce the next. We have 3 sessions. So he's going to introduce us. And there are other guys who are coming from other schools and other provinces. We'd like to introduce all of them and conduct a roll call. So, Miss Della, please, are you here? If you are, you can
Yes,
take over,
I'm here.
do introduction quickly, then we can roll on.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so before I start with introducing the speaker, the speaker for the first session or the speakers for the entire program, I would like to call a few people to share their research experience, what they did wrong, how they got it right, and just something little, okay, before I introduce the speakers, okay. So the first person I would like to call on will be Baba, Mr. Baba. Please, if you are online, he's from Sichuan Agriculture in Chengdu. Baba, if you're here.
Yeah, Miss Dels, I'm around. Good evening.
Good evening. Please, you have the platform. Can you please share with us your research experience so far? The bitter, the sweet, the mistakes, a few mistakes you made. Even though we are going to all hear from the goons, the gurus, but we also believe that if you're able to whet our appetite to see what is to anticipate what is coming, it will be very good. So please, you have the platform.
All right. Let me once again say good evening to the presidents, both national and local, and all the executives, as well as members of committees and then colleague students. As rightfully said by Ms. Della, my name is Baba Salifu Yahya. I am a 3rd grade PhD research fellow with Sichuan Agriculture University. And I'm delighted to share a couple of experience, maybe just in a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, I'll be done. And I would like to actually put this in 3 clusters. First of all, how I settled in, and then how I was able to conceptualize my research, and then the normal challenges that comes along as the research progressed. For my settling in, by the nature of my research group, I didn't have a lot of challenges. And fortunately for me, my supervisor also had the opportunity to also study in the US. So he actually knew what it took to study outside your native country. So I didn't have, okay, my attention has been drawn that I need to use a camera. So as I was indicating, my supervisor had the opportunity of studying in the United States. So actually she knew what it took to study overseas. And therefore she made sure all the things I needed to actually settle in very well in the lab was made available. She made sure I had somebody within our group who could speak English very well. She helped me to settle in with regards to registrations. They prepared a seat for me both in the lab and then also in the reading room and every other thing. So I didn't have a lot of challenges with regards to settling. My settling was quite smooth. But the challenges that came up when I needed to conceptualize my research. And my research group, actually, we work, our focus is on functional genomics. Mostly we do abiotic stress response in maize. That is where our research focus. And henceforth, when you come, depending on within the lab, we have subgroups within the lab, and each group has a teacher. So depending on the teacher you are aligned to, then probably there are some genes they have already identified. Then you will take the genes and try to do the functional characterization. So the huge challenge I had was with regards to the actually conceptualizing my research, because my coming to China was actually occasioned by the need to acquire the knowledge and skills with regards to molecular breeding. You know, in Ghana, most of the research we do I won't say exclusively, but to the greatest extent, is all usually conventional. And looking at the current trends, most of the journals, especially the SCI journals, you cannot publish in those journals without adding a little bit of molecular findings in your research. So my coming to China was actually influenced by the need to acquire this knowledge. But when I got to China, I didn't have a lot of experience working in the laboratory. So I was virtually like just like a first degree student who has entered the lab. So I have a lot of challenges actually getting adapted to the laboratory conditions, how to handle the laboratory equipments and a whole lot of things. So that was the first challenges I started encountering was how to deal with, cope with the laboratory conditions. And also it was also a big challenge, quite, not that huge, but it was quite a challenge also communicating with them, but you have to find a way to do that. And then, as I said, because I didn't have a lot of knowledge in molecular breeding, and then we needed to also prepare your proposal and submit in a very short time. And you have no idea of it's just a new ball game altogether. You don't even know where to start. So that was the challenge I was first confronted with. And how did I overcome this challenge? It was all about reading, 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 and reading. And then by the grace of God, once I got the concept, then I was now able to actually put the dots together and then write my proposal. So I think with this place, it's not like in our country where this place, nobody, maybe they will make available a little bit of time to help you, but the chunk of the work will have to come from your own effort. So upon reading and reading and reading, I was able to actually get the concept and actually develop a proposal. And then when I sent to my professor, then through deliberations and suggestions and other things, I was able to fine tune it before I did the actual presentation at the faculty. So I think I will encourage all of us to actually read and read and read and read, so that we don't only do an experiment to find out that probably the techniques or the route we use was not so relevant. And it is something I'll talk about later with regards to the relevance of the research. But one also thing that I will classify as a mistake was regards to time management. Yeah, I think I did personally in the first year, I think I didn't actually manage my time very well. And this was occasioned by the fact that within the first year, because we were actually combining coursework with research, I did not really pay a lot of attention to the research. And it was also because I didn't actually know, I didn't know the veracity of the molecular research. And so I was thinking, let me just dedicate the first year to the coursework. And then when we are done with the coursework, then I would actually focus on the research. But I really didn't know the molecular research is actually time demanding. And so by the end of the first year, I realized that I had made a very big mistake, meaning there are a lot of things I could have done in the first year to actually save a lot of time to actually help me finish in time. And as I speak now, we were supposed to graduate just about 4 months from now in June. But looking at how things have turned out, it is less likely that I could graduate because there are still a lot of data I need to collect. And so time management is also very key. So within the shortest possible time, when you get here, you will have to find a way to actually get the concept of your research. And then when you get your concept of your research and you know what it will entail to actually go through these concepts, then you can actually plan your time very well. So time management has been something I will classify as a mistake, something I didn't do very well. Okay, let me just say this quickly and then finish up. What I was saying is about relevance. Right now we are having a challenge with the paper we want to publish by one of our group members, and it is all bound down to relevance. When you do identify a problem and it's a novelty, then it is more easier for you to publish it. But if you are just adding up to knowledge that already exists, then you will have to do more. Actually, if you are adding up to a knowledge that already exists, you have to do more. And so I will entreat all of us to never give up and work hard, read a lot, and we should not carry ourselves as if we know everything. We should also not carry ourselves as if we are dumb, because the only way we can command respect among our lab mates is to actually portray ourselves like we know at least a little. And so I think we don't have a lot of time, so I'll end it up here and then allow other people to also speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baba. Thank you very, very much. So I believe your research experience is still ongoing. From what you shared so far, it's still ongoing. But I can see in the chat box somebody said, plenty read can spoil person in brain. Okay. Oh, Mr. Zacchaeus, please, it's not time for questions yet, so don't worry. We will get time for Q&A. Then you can ask your questions, please. Okay, so the second person I would like to call on is Mr. Gerald Mali. Mr. Gerald Mali, a PhD student at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China, UESTC, Chengdu. Mr. Gerald Mali, please, if you are online.
Yes, I'm online. Hello.
Okay, please, in the next 5 minutes, can you please share something brief about your research experience from master's till now, just in 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm Gerard Malet Tiata. My master's, I actually did it in Ghana, KNUST. So I did MSc in Information Technology. And well, I can say the MSc that I did in Ghana was like nothing as such special, but a modification. Okay. Turning camera on. Is it okay now? Yes, sir. Okay, so it was just like adding some few stuff to my already existing first degree work that I did at University of Education, Winneba, that is the same IT. So I had a chance to come to China to do my PhD in computer science and technology. I was actually swerved by my main purpose of coming here. I intended to come and do maybe big data research, but unfortunately the lab I ended up in put me to do a research in 5G with deep learning, with blockchain, a whole blockbuster of technologies, which I actually have no idea how even to start. But fortunately, our supervisor started drilling us just based on the first semester. He asked us to start reading papers. So we have to read papers, present, read, present. He will toss us up and down. So even closer to exams days, we'll still go to a lab and then just do some presentation. So second semester, he has to share us in some groups that we should go and then read about certain areas. So he gave us some research topics. We should come out with some problems. We did that. So we're one of the lucky students in terms of coming up with a research proposal, but we are one of the last people to submit. So we could not meet the deadline, though we finished early. But in all, I think the experience was okay. Just that the frustration is when to get your paper being published after getting your novelty. Because the more you waste time, then the more maybe the relevance of that novelty depreciates. So, well, it's still a learning curve. We are still on it. So I guess with time, things will turn up good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mali. Thank you so much for sharing such an experience with us. But I learned one word, one key term from you, blockbuster of technologies. Man, it's not easy. Blockbuster of technologies. Okay, we will get back to that later. Maybe I'll come and see you later so that you give me more details on that. Okay,
right.
So ladies and gentlemen, so we are about to start. And I would like to call on Dr. Ashon Obed Ashonate to introduce our first speaker. So, Dr. Obed Ashonate, can you please take the platform?
Well, thank you very much. Della, when you begin to say Dr. Sean Bednati, you don't know that name. Okay, many people don't know those names. When you say Tekao, everybody, we just keep it. We just keep
okay.
it. Okay, so yeah, that was just an aside. Yes, we have with us a very profound person who is into animal breeding and genetics. He is the Dean of College of Agric and Sciences and Technology at Masarova Global University in India. Actually, he has excelled so much. He has done so many works. And in fact, I'm not going to speak for him. He's going to speak for himself. So if we have Prof. Sandip, I hope Professor Sandip.
Yeah, I'm there.
Oh, yes, that is great.
Good evening from India, and I'm Sandeep speaking.
Good evening from China.
Good evening, Professor.
Sorry, I was a bit late because I was traveling. I had told Mariama that I'll be a bit late. So I'm sorry for that, because my office finishes at around 5:30 here in India, and by the time I reach home, it's around 5:45. So sorry for being late for about 15-20 minutes. Sorry for that.
No problem, Professor. Actually, we were also sharing our various experiences. Sometimes when the peers we are able to share our experiences, it goes down well when other things. But then with you on board, I'm leaving everything into your hands. You have the time.
That's great. Thanks a lot. And can you just make me the host so that I can share my slides around? Hello. Can you just send me across so that I can share my slides? Yeah, I got it. Got it. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And I'm just now going to share my slide. And with a brief experience about myself. Well, my name is Sandeep. I would prefer you call me in that name, not those big jargons, professor, and all those type of things. Of course, those are there, but I'm not saying that I don't. I feel comfortable if you call me by my name. And when it comes to my thing, well, Mariama was, I had been Mariama's advisor for when she was doing her master's in Ethiopia. And as I was her advisor, and I had also taught her about a couple of courses. So it was Mariama who actually wanted me to come around, and I thank you, Mariama, for the thing which you had given me, and I think we can make some justification out of that. So one of the very interesting thing which I believe is which came around is research topics. That's great, and that's where we call. I believe you can hear me and the slides are visible. Is it?
It's okay, Professor. It's okay.
Okay. Now that's great. I would prefer call me Sandeep. That will be better for me rather than using those diagrams. So I'd prefer please.
Okay.
I'm not like the other ones. Huh? So that's one of the things which we say is research and choosing the right topic and how to go ahead. I'm just I've made little changes in the way I felt it is more comfortable for the students to understand. Well, if you ask me, my experience about research is goes back since 1995, 94, 95, when I did my master's, and then later on my PhD, which started in 1999 and it ended in 2003. It looks back around nearly 20 years now. And since then, I have been in academics and have been advising students, and I have around, to my kitty, it's a small kitty, not much, more than around 90 masters and a couple of PhD students in different fields of agriculture and specializing in animal breeding. So keeping that into account, so choosing the right research topic. So That's how the things go. So now, as you see, the flow of the presentation is, well, research as the people see and define it. It's not my definition by conducted by different people. And then comes a very thing, why do you conduct the research? Well, then comes the third very important thing. Well, you have decided that you will conduct a research, then how to choose a topic. And after choosing the topic, then you have to find out what new am I going to give to the world or to the audience through my research. And then come the right objectives, and I'll be just little going into the argument and how to conclude the research and all those type of things. So, but I says with the word, the definition, and I use the word kaleidoscope of definition, because there are a lot of definitions of research going around all over the places. And as you know, see, in a kaleidoscope, you see different colors, and I'm just putting 3 definitions out of it. And one of the definition is the most popular accepted definition of research is a careful consideration of study regarding a particular concern. And it is also defined as a creative and systemic work which is undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge. Well, it has to have a flow. It has to have a system behind it, and there are different logics which go around into research, and any research, scientific or non-scientific, has to follow a particular logic. And it's a process of basically what I can say is systemic inquiry that includes collection of data, documentation. It's a big job. Documentation is a very big job, because when you collect the data and if you are not properly documenting it, it makes a mess out of it. And then when you get those things, then you carry out an analysis of the data which you have gathered over the period of time and make some meaningful results out of it. And we call it as an analysis. And once the results come, you have to interpret exactly what the results are. And that's a very, very important work. A wrong interpretation or a misinterpretation can really jeopardize the whole thing. So that's where the argument comes, where you basically try to give a very, very big, good argument and justification of the work which you are trying to do. And then it has to follow a certain methodology, which basically is accepted all over the world and by the scientific community, so that you know so that there is less amount of confusion, and people accept your work at the end of the day, and that's how the research goes. So when we start with the first thing is well, okay, then I go, but why at all do we need to carry out research? That's a big thing. Well, when I came into my PhD research and the research after that, it was because I had a zeal to do it. I had a zeal to do something. And I remember when I was enrolled my PhD, I chose a topic which my advisor was not very comfortable with. And then my advisor told one day and said, "It's your baby, you do it, you get it. If you don't do it, don't blame me." I said, "That's fair. It's a fair and frank statement." And I said, "Good. It's my baby, and I take it as I feel I'll go around." So, first of all, we carry out research for academic excellence. Yes, many of us do. Many of us really feel it, but I somehow feel that there is some hidden agenda behind it. The second thing is for economic and social well-being. Well, that's much more logical, because if you write a name DR or DR before your name, you get some economic benefit out of it, maybe in form of promotion or in form of better job, and then you are socially, you are called a doctor and you feel really proud of it. So that's, again, that's more logical, and that's more what happens. And third thing is for joy. Some people like me who do it. Some people like me who really are mad about it and they carry out the work. And still, you know, when I'm now 50 plus, I prefer to see something and conclude something, and still on an average, I am in front of my laptop for maybe around if not anything, around 16, 17 hours a day, except the ones which I basically sleep or some other thing. So 15, 16 hours still goes around. So it's basically a joy. I enjoy it. So if you don't enjoy it, it's a burden. So don't carry around the burden. Don't carry around the burden. It's going to hurt you at the long run. So if you are carrying out research, do it and enjoy it. But then comes a very interesting thing again, types of scientific research. Well, it's again a very old thing, but yet I want to really brush it up, is scientific research can be divided into two broad types. And the first is the inductive research. And the second one, we call it as the deductive research. And there are two different aspects of it, and each has its own way of looking into it. So what's an inductive research? Well, here the goal of the researcher is to make an inference on the theoretical concepts and patterns from the data he or she observes or collects. So it's basically, it's in that way. So here the researcher, what he does is collect the data that goes in line with his or her topic. And then the researcher, what the researcher does is after collecting the data, makes some inference out of it. So here the data is collected. And after the data is collected, what we do is we look for a pattern, how the data is behaving. And based on the pattern, what happens is we develop a theory. That's inductive research. And many of you may be basically working into it, and that's where we call it as also a basic research field. Whereas on the other hand, when we have a deductive research, here the goal of the researcher is to test the concepts, which is basically provided. It's a pattern just opposite to that of the inductive research. And then what happens is, here the researcher typically associates with the scientific investigation, and the researcher studies what others have done and then goes around with it. And this basically most of the applied research is a deductive research. That's what we call it. So theoretize or hypothesize, then you analyze the data, and after analysis the data, you give a reason why it behaved in that form, and then hypothesis whether it is supportive or not, whether the null hypothesis is accepted or it is rejected. Then comes the work. The inductive approach involves beginning with a set of factual observations. This is basically what we call as a basic research, where people observe certain things happening in the atmosphere or something, and then seeing the pattern about it and going ahead with it. Whereas the deductive approach involves beginning with a theory, which you basically been coming from the inductive research, then developing hypothesis, and then go ahead with it. And both these approaches can be used together or singularly, but in many of the cases, these approaches are basically going hand in hand with overall research. So basic or applied research. Basic research is entirely theoretical and aimed in improving or expanding the knowledge base. And it looks into the knowledge for its own sake and is driven by curiosity, like maybe basic research, which is basically there in physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, where you carry out certain basic work, and we basically applied scientists, we applied those work and find out whether that works into our system or not. It's known as a fundamental research. Applied research, well, that's where the most practical solutions are carrying out, where we use the ideas generated or things generated by the basic research into solving the practical problems. And it's a form of investigation that encompasses solution-oriented inquiries for a particular thing. For example, let us say a type of protein, which is basically seeing whether it is working on a poultry or it is working on swine or it is working on cattle, and how it is working, and the the metabolism and all those type of things. So basically it's applied research because proteins and the type of proteins and amino acids are basically coming around with the basic research, and we are basically applying. So how to choose the title of your research topic? That's where we basically go ahead. How to choose a title? That is main jargon. Well, the ability to develop a good research topic is an important skill. Now that's, you have to accept it. And most of the time, which I felt, and I really do not like it, I really do not appreciate it, is when your advisor or the supervisor, I assign a specific topic. But that's someone else's baby which you are basically carrying around. If you ask me, I try to tell the students, okay, come up with 2 or 3 topics of your own, and then we can narrow down to the one which we feel is good. But many of times the students are confused, and as they are confused, they are not able to really come around that what type of topic is best for them. I don't know whether I did the same for Mariama or not. I don't really remember, but I personally like the students to choose their own topic. Once they choose their own topic, then what happens is it's their baby, and you carry the baby around. I really like that. And then if you are working on a topic assigned to you, then at times, many a times I've seen you lose interest. You lose interest at the end of the day. It doesn't interest me anymore. Oh, this is not my cup of tea. And if you are pursuing someone else's dream, then it does not make sense. Someone else's dream is not yours. Because you're going to carry out a research, PhD research, maybe once in a lifetime. If you're not mad like me, who are planning to do further several researches after I just hang up my boot. After I hang up my boot, or after I just finish my thank you. Can you, thanks a lot. Can you give me the other biscuit? Rasta. So when I hang up my boot, the Agriculture University from where I did my PhD is near to my home. I have planned to go and get myself enrolled again once more and do another research, just only for a curiosity sake, a joy sake, because I have to keep myself busy. Otherwise, if I don't keep myself busy, then it becomes a problem. So I will never try to carry someone else's dream on my shoulders. It's my own dream, and I would like to work on it. That's what the things are. Thus, before we narrow down to a topic, what we need to set up realistic goals. Our goal, which is realistic and which you can carry out within the time given to you. Because all of you are on scholarships. Maybe the scholarship is for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and within that 4 years, you have to earn the degree. So realistic goals are needed. Very, very much needed. Don't be over ambitious. Leave it something for your next brother and sister who's going to come after you. So if you're not putting out a realistic goal, you will never make the things happen. Second, brainstorming for ideas is a big thing. It's very easy to say brainstorming for ideas, but really speaking, you have to do it. You have to do it. Because if you don't brainstorm for ideas, then you are carrying someone else's baby on your shoulder. And I would like you not to do it. And when you are brainstorming for ideas, one more thing, discuss your ideas with the like-minded friends. Maybe in the evening, maybe over a cup of coffee, or if you're drinking beer, a glass of beer on a cafe or a pub. Discuss ideas. The more you discuss, the more clarity comes. But make sure that those people are like-minded. Otherwise they may lead you somewhere which is not correct. Choose a topic of interest that allows you to read and understand the literatures at hand. So you have to read a topic with the literatures you have at hand, and then you start reading about it and reading and reading and reading about it. So I would suggest in that way, what happens is first when you go to the realistic goals, that really makes you very clear that what type of topics you can finish within the speculated period of time for where you are in China or anywhere in the world, and what type of fellowship you have. And when you have that in mind, that yes, I can do this and I cannot do this, then you have to brainstorm for ideas, basically what type of experiments or what type of topics I finish within that particular period of time. And then, as usual, like-minded friends, because good friends can give you good suggestions and they can basically help you around and they can give you whether it works into it. And then you should have the facilities at hand or the literatures at hand so that you can basically read into it and then discuss further. So the ability to complete the objectives of in the topic chosen by you under the prevailing resources and circumstances is very much important. Many times you become very over enthusiastic, but your lab facility doesn't allow you, or the funding doesn't allow you, or your time doesn't allow you. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because if you do that, what happens is by the time you are in the halfway, you are basically not, you don't have money and the advisor loses interest or something is dangerous. Very, very dangerous. And if the resources and circumstances are not favorable and yet you like a particular topic, be a little flexible. Be a little flexible. And when you're a little flexible, what happens is you can really make, okay, it's good, I can do it, but not to that extent, which I really like it. Maybe you can look into that angle and leave it for postdoc later on. Once narrowed down, define your topic with focused research questions. You have to make those research questions. Why am I carrying out this work? What are the things I'm going to achieve? Now, one thing which you have to be very clear about, and I want to be very, very specific about. I have seen my colleagues who did their PhDs in Germany or Netherlands and other places, or even they came for some of my colleagues, they did their PhD in countries like South Korea or maybe even India. And when you are going into those type of topics, when you go back home, at the end of the day, the facility does not exist. And when the facility does not exist at your home at that particular period of day, your expertise cannot be used by your country. As your expertise cannot be used by your country, what happens is you will not be able to contribute to your country's well-being or country's economy. Very clear about it. So as in that case, what happens is, and as you know, science is a dynamic, it's a dynamic thing happening. Maybe after 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, or by the time your country becomes proficient in that particular field of study or expertise, you are now left much behind than the current scenario. So you have to be very focused about what your country needs, so that as soon as you finish your PhD and you are there with the latest things happening, your country or the people of your country can be benefited. This is again only possible if you have your own research problem, because you know your country better than the others, and the research problem is your own baby. That's very clear. No shortcut to success. Never, never, never. So I was telling you, I'm still even sitting in my office at my home. After my office in the university, I'm sitting in my office in my home, and maybe I'll be working on it till around the night, 9 o'clock. And this is now around 6:30 in India. So reading is, that's you cannot, there's no shortcut to it. Now, how do you start reading? Because we tend to read more the topics which interest you. So therefore, what happens is, if it's your own baby, the topic interests you, you don't get bored by reading those topics, because that interests you. But if I give you a topic which doesn't interest you, after some time you'll start yawning. So that's what the game is. Now set the broad objectives. There are two things, general objectives, or we call it as the broad objectives, and then after that, go to the specific objectives and the short objectives. The objectives have to be very clearly done. And however, selecting the topic is not very easy. You have to devote a lot of time for that. So it must be specific, focused enough, and interesting, and broad enough to accommodate a lot of information which is necessary for publications of the papers which you have to do on your thesis. So before narrowing down to a topic, you like to dream as to how the final project will look like. So you have to be a dreamer from the very beginning. How will the final project look like at the end of the day? Very clear. Realistic goals and dreams. So what we do, be passionate about what you do. If you're not passionate enough, it will be a bore for you. You'll start yawning at the end of it, in the midway. Visualize yourself. Where do you see yourself after 10 years? That's very important, because that's the goal which you have set. Within 10 years or the next 10 years, I want to reach such and such place. So you know that your aim has been decided, and you have to basically go ahead with it. Put small goals across the years. This year, I'm going to produce 3 research papers. Next year, I'm going to produce 2 research papers. My experiment should finish within such and such period of time, and try to achieve it. Don't put big goals. Put small goals and try to achieve it. If you achieve your aims, very good. Go to the next goal. And if you have not achieved your aim, do a retrospective. What happened? What went wrong? Maintain a diary and follow it. While on the way, keep reading and improvising yourself over the period of time, but that's important. So you cannot stop reading. Be committed to your goals very much. Many of the students try to work on topics which they cannot use immediately, then they repatriate to their countries. I would suggest avoid those topics. This is what I was telling. When you go back to your country, make sure you are able to utilize the expertise which you have gained over a period of time. Make sure of that. Skill upgradation is a continuous process. Upgrade them as you go ahead. Conjure up ideas. Do you have a strong opinion about the prevailing scientific trend in the field of specialization? Look into it. You know exactly what's happening in the trend, in that scientific field, which you are basically working into. You have to basically look into it, and how it's going ahead, you have to look into it. We can also gather ideas from the print media, internet, that the topic which you are working on, whether it will be really worthwhile to work on in the next 5 years or 10 years, and then gather information about it. Because there's no point in working on a topic which becomes redundant after 5 or 10 years. The topic should be such that it has to have a realistic, and you are utilizable for the next 10, 15 years. And that also you have to basically discuss with the like-minded people. That will give you, many times people choose topics because of their personal issues, problems, or interests, and try working on them. That's also there. few days ago, there was a lady whom I was talking to, and she was trying to work on a particular tree. She was in pharmacology, and I was talking to her, why are you interested in that particular tree? She said, oh, some of my relatives, they perished due to cancer. And I have heard that extract of this tree basically cures cancer, so I want to work into it. That's perfect, because it's of a personal issue, and I cannot overrule or put my foot over that, because she has certain sentiments behind it. Identify the few problems and narrow down to the ones which can be carried out in the speculative period of time you have in hand. Make sure that the selected topics remain relevant even after a few years or several years after the study has ended. Read background literatures and review of literature. And how do you read it? Once the topic has been narrowed down, gather information, more information about the topic. Start from a simple or popular articles. That's very interesting. You know, popular articles are very, very important, because those articles have been written in a very simple scientific language. Simple language can be easily understood even by a layman or a novice. So once you start reading about that, you start developing interest. Like a few years ago, I was basically working into something on epigenetics. And I started with a very, very simple article on epigenetics, and I went ahead with it. And then I went for complex and more complex and more complex. But my interest really came out with that simple popular article on epigenetics. I remember when I was young, when I was in class 8, my uncle gave me a book on genetics, and it was named a simple book written in a very simple way, Why I Am Like That. Very simple, not a very big diagram. Why I am like that. And then when I started reading it, it was a very popular book, which was written in a very, very simple way, and it was basically on the Mendelian genetics. But the title was Why I Am Like That. Maybe I would have not read it had it been written in a very, very scientific way, or maybe very scientific. The topic would have been in a very scientific thing. Maybe I would have not read it that time. But as it was a very simple and a catchy word, why I am like that, it made me read it. And that is from that particular topic what I am saying there today, a geneticist. So you have to go into it. Then go for simple scientific articles, maybe what I can say, review articles, simple scientific articles written in a very simple way, and then go ahead with it. Then go for a little complex and complex and complex. So if you are disheartened at the very beginning, you know that's not your baby. Go ahead, leave that and go for another topic. However, as you are going ahead, you can really understand whether it's a cup of tea or not. Because if you are not happy with the simple scientific articles or with the popular articles, you don't feel yourself to be a part of it, then there's no point in going ahead. Then go ahead with the topic which is basically interest. At any stage, if you feel it's not passionate enough, go back to the next topic which interests. Simple and polite. And remain focused on the topic. The topic should neither be broad, neither be too narrow, so that it becomes good for you. And the too broad a topic, you'd remain unfocused. And too small, you will have problems in basically writing your papers, or basically saying that, okay, your work is limited to a particular a country or a particular agroecology within a country or a particular community. Well, people may not like it. So the some common ways to limit a topic can at times be due to geographical areas. It can be due to population groups or cultures. It can be due to species, breed, variety, agroecology, where you basically go ahead. Keywords are very important. It's really, really very important. And what really they do is, in order to remain focused in what you do, you require the keywords. That's where it helps you to get the review proper. It helps you to remain focused on and get reading materials. Take the help of a thesaurus, and that you get lots of synonyms and antonyms, and then it basically gives you more amount of keywords which you require. And keep a note on these words and keep on searching the databases, but remain flexible. You need to modify the research topic based on the resources you have. And for the PhD students, you have to remember you have limited funds, you have limited talent. The number of pages in your dissertation will also be limited. So don't be overambitious. So do not be overambitious. Simple. Be super specific. Once you have the broad general objectives, now you have to have specific objectives and develop the road plan behind it. So far, how to go ahead? Read, read, and read. Nothing else. Identify the current and future trends. Will the research be useful for the industry and the scientific communities, or even your community with whom you are basically your own community over a period of time? And then it comes how to put across your ideas, findings, or how to form an argument. That comes the next topic. And the topic, why do you need to have an argument, really? We see across the results from different point of view, different perspectives. Always, I say, I see a glass half full of water, you may see it half empty, both of us are correct. But that's how we look into it. Be careful when you set up experiments. Read the methodologies carefully and get yourself trained with the equipment which you are expected to handle. Be truthful in presenting the results, and the findings may differ from the literature reviewed, and maybe your answer become your experiment is quite unique. I remember when I was doing my PhD, there was a topic which came around that I was working on some serum enzymes, and there was a particular level of enzyme which was very, very high in the breed which I was working on. It was, in fact, at times double than that what was reported in many other studies. But I carried out my experiments again 2 or 3 times, and the results remained consistent. And at the end of the day, I got a review which said, yes, in a particular breed from Iraq, they also got similar results. So don't change, do not change your results if you are convinced that they are true. So don't get jittery. Identify the outliers of the data, and if needed, remove them. So outliers are the ones basically which can be due to several reasons. So you have to identify them and see them that they're not there. And therefore, logic should take precedence over sentiment at this end of the day. A good argument can assist in planning the structure and find the evidence needed to support the objectives. And the argument hence needs to be very focused. At the end, we should sum up the argument in a few words, and that's what we call it as the conclusion. So very, very focused on the argument. Be very focused. And why you have to restructure the argument properly is to basically, it should attract the reader. Well, sometimes when I was there in Ethiopia, I used to say, discussions is something like writing a love letter to a beloved. Many of you may be saying, oh, you're still an old man writing a letter, but we write emails or we just send text messages. Good, that's good. But the way you send an email or a text message makes your lover sentimental. So your argument should be such that it becomes a love letter. It's like something which a person thinks, or a good novel, you know, if you write a crime thriller or some novel, where the person's, oh, next page, something else is there. Let me read, go through and go through it and go through it. And maybe the person finishes a 500-page novel in 1 day or 2 days. That's where your argument should be. It should really, really be such that people love to read it and they don't get bored while reading it. So reader, while going through the study, has certain curiosities in mind and they have to keep hearing. I think someone is saying, is it that my time out? Okay. I'll just finish it off within 2 minutes, and maybe I'll share the things now. Thanks a lot, and if you want to really get in touch with me, there is. Okay, thank you. That's where my queries are. If you have further queries, this is my email ID. This is my WhatsApp number. You can be in touch with me. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for bearing my stories. I believe it's it so. Thanks a lot. Can take over, please.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Thank you, Sadeep.
Yeah, that's great. That's the way I like.
Sometimes we forget to say that because we know if we don't add the professor, we will be penalized. So
I will never do so. In fact, I tell you what happened. Once when I was in 2004, when I was doing my postdoc, I used to write "sir," "respected sir," and all those type of things to my advisor. And one fine day, he writes me an email. It says, I would prefer that you call me George. My parents have don't write sir and all those type of things. And since then, I also said, okay, my name is Sandeep, that's all.
okay.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Any questions? I'd like to.
All right. Thank you very much, Sandeep.
Yeah.
Well, we've had so much rich experiences. We've heard all your stories. You call them stories, but I don't think they are. They are eye-opening events that you've given to us. There are certain things that myself, as a researcher, I'm just seeing them. Oh, so interesting. I think everybody here on this platform has taken one or two things that you'll be working on with or will be working along with. Well, for the meantime, we will move on to the next session. And then after the next session, we will combine the 2 sessions and have the question time and answers. Then as we
great. Thanks a lot.
Prof, you can have a tea now at the moment. Okay.
I'm hungry. I'll be having biscuits too.
All right. You need to suit your voice with some tea and, as you said, biscuits. so okay. With the next, we move to the next session, and this session we're going to talk about. We are going to call on. Majority of the people call him Jack.
That's great.
Well, Jack of what? I have no idea. I don't want to name him Jack of something. We are all going to see what is a Jack of, and at the end of the day, we will all give him that name, whether Jack of research, Jack of what, Jack of what. So if I have Mr. Nana Usajimai, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So Jack, you are here. Please.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, we want to be sure of what Jack you are. Jack of what? Okay. So I hand over the microphone to you. Take over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, honorable members. My name is Kobno Uswajima, but popularly known as Jack. This Jack is not a nickname. That is how my parents call me. Most people think it's a nickname, but it's not a nickname. That is how my parents call me. Okay. Now let's move straight to action. Share. Hello, can you see me?
Yes, we can. Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Okay. Great. You know, we Mac users have little challenges with our security.
Yeah.
Okay, can you see me now? Can you see my screen?
No, I cannot.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can see it.
Yeah, I think we are good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about structuring our research. We want to zoom straight into how we can be able to structure our paper. Okay. Now, before you start writing any of the papers, after you are done with your experiment and everything, there are certain basic tools I would like you to have before you can proceed with your writing. The first is the author information pack, or what we call the author guidelines. Most of the journals have this kind of document that spells out details of the things you need, or all the sessions, things that are supposed to be written over there. Now, from my personal experience, what I normally do is I pick a sample of any paper, a sample of a paper from a journal that I intend publishing my paper. Or sometimes I use, when it comes to conferences, I use the best papers, the papers that won the best paper award in such conferences. So I use those as a guideline to help me structure my paper very well. Then you also get your template. Most times, the main reason I'm saying you need a template is sometimes some of the templates might be in Word, others might be in LaTeX, whereby there are a lot of rules governing the use of those things. So it is very prudent you get access to samples of these things before you continue. Okay. Now, when we talk of the structure of a paper, this happens to be the standard we use in writing most of the papers that we write. This is the standard. And it has other similar methods to, or similar formats, let me put it that way. Now, the main focus is where I've hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Now, there are other structures whereby it involves the introduction, you come to the related works, the methodology, results, discussion, and then conclusion. And then some of these things are also based on the journal that you are writing to. That is why I said earlier on that you need a sample from the journal that you intend sending your paper to. So right now we're going straight ahead to touch on each of the sessions as you see on the diagram. Now, when you see this side, I've written from the introduction to the conclusion happens to be the embodiment of the whole thing that you're going to do. But the heaviest part, the most important part happens to be where we have the methods and then the results. Now, I think Professor have talked much about the title. So the first one, you need to write a title. Now let's move on to the next one. I don't want to bother you so much because Professor have talked about it so much. Now, there is this simple trick I personally use in writing my abstract. The abstract happens to be the last thing you write, but one of the most important things, or I would say the important thing that catches the eye of the reviewer, or the eye of any reader, anybody who intends reading your article. What I do is, problem statement, and then I fill the problem statement, move on to the motivation, I fill it, approach, I fill it, result, I fill it, conclusion, I fill it. And then after that, I'll be able to know that all the ingredients that are needed within the abstract are now present. Now with the conclusion side, sometimes that is where you bring your evaluation and how what you got can be applicable in other areas of other areas in the industry. Now, there are certain things you don't have to be doing in the abstract. The abstract shouldn't be too long. Sometimes some of these articles will tell you to write between 250 to 300 words. Some of them will say 250 to 300 words. So please always go by what the author's guidelines tells you to do. Now, this is a sample of what I was talking about. So you could see clearly how the person have been able to get all those ingredients within the title and then the abstract within a particular paper. So you see, we have the motivation here, you have the problem statement here, you have your proposed methodology, and then your results and your conclusion within a particular abstract. I love this paper so much. I chose this particular paper because of the different kinds of researchers within this on this platform or on this program that we are doing. I don't want to be so biased in choosing a paper. That is why I choose a paper that will satisfy most of our colleagues on the group. Now then we move on to the introduction. The introduction, I don't want to go so much details into the introduction, but this is where you start developing your argument. Our brother Kingsley will talk about it. You need to develop your argument, and there should be a cohesion in how you develop your argument. Now, within the introduction, there are other sessions within the introductions like contribution. This sub-session within the introduction happens to be very, very, very important. Please, it is very, very important, because this is where will be also the contribution is also connected to what you said in the abstract. So when people are reading, they try to connect. You said this in the abstract. Are we seeing it in the introduction? Are we connecting it in the introduction? So these are some of the things you need to be very careful and then introduce into it whenever you are writing. Now, depending on the kind of paper that you are writing, sometimes at the tail end of the introduction, it's important to also introduce the organization of the paper that you are writing. So this is a typical example of the introduction that somebody wrote for the paper that I showed you or earlier on. So here you see where the first red section is. Here is where the person was trying to develop the problem that he or she is going to solve within this paper. And then the next side is his proposed methodology. So all those things are supposed to appear within the introduction. He introduced his framework within this side. So it gives you a fair idea about, now let me check from the abstract. Is it there? True, it's there. Can we find a problem in the introduction? Yes, it's there. So it clearly shows you are on course. Please, the writing style within each of the sections in the structure of your paper is extremely important, and then you need to take notice of all those things. Now we move on to, from the I, we move on to the M, that is the methodology. Now we have 3 different types of methodology, but for the purposes of the kind of research that we do here, and then the kind of schools we have within our China setup, most of us work within with the methodology papers. Most of us work it. That's why I've highlighted this side red. Now, in the methodology papers, you need to address the model and the theoretical framework of the methodology. You need to address it. That is, when you are proposing any methodology, when you are proposing any model, you need to address it, explain the details of it, each of the different pieces that mix up the methodology must be explained clearly. Now, then we move to the results. With the results, this is where I keep saying is one of the most heaviest parts. The results, you represent, your result must be in a form of, we call it visualization. You need to visualize your results. That is, when somebody who is not in your research domain, or somebody who cannot even understand what you are doing, but a clear scene of the diagrams and the results of your research, will be able to at least understand something small. So in the result, that is where you show you try to highlight the differences between existing research work and your research work, to also demonstrate how well you have been able to improve upon the existing research that you were working around. Now, in the performance analysis, it is also prudent to also show, either by visualization or in a tabular form, showing the difference with figures. Sometimes you need to provide some data to also show that clear distinction between your work and how well you have been able to improve upon the previous one. Now, this is a sample of some of the visualizations that I was talking about. You see, this side happens to be the tables that was doing more of the comparison between the existing proposals or existing approaches to the current one. And then you see these kind of visualizations. Now with this one, even if you cannot read and write, just seeing this, it actually gives you some meaning. It actually gives you some meaning. And then you see those below over here. Now there's one other thing I also want to just point out. Sometimes the journal will tell you to present the images or the figures in a particular file extension. The main reason is that, let's say you are using LaTeX. There are some of the file extensions that looks very sharp. It gives you a clear picture. The pictures happen to be very clear and better when you use them in those particular templates. So you'll be asked to stick to a particular file format like EPS, PNG, and then JPEG. But most of the time they prefer the EPS to all the rest. And then please, when you are presenting your results, it's very important to also go through the author's guidelines, to also read about the number of figures or tables that you can present within a particular paper. Some of them will tell you need to present A or B number of figures, or A or B number of tables, to also show the differences between your research and an existing research work. Now the discussion. What I've personally noticed is that sometimes when we have discussions with some of our brothers and sisters, you could see people do visualization, nice visualizations, use powerful visualization tools to present their results, but they don't discuss it, thinking the reader should be able to understand what he or she has been able to present. But it doesn't work like that. You need to just explain the meaning of all the diagrams or all the results that you got within your research work. Now, one of the most important things I also want to chip in here is, don't make statements that go beyond what the result can support. Sometimes if you are not careful, you might make those mistakes. Why? Because whenever we are working, we work by using a paper to guide us, a paper that we are able to locate some of the gaps and then we intend improving upon. In an attempt of improving upon those papers, you are tempted to read, you are tempted to introduce some of those results or discussions into the new paper that you are writing. Please, those things are not allowed. Make sure you stick to your domain. Make sure you stick to your results. So you discuss what you've shown. Don't discuss what somebody else have shown. You only discuss what somebody else have shown when you are comparing results. When you are comparing results. And please, your English should be on point at this stage. Don't be over writing because you think you can speak good English. And then sometimes you see some of us introducing new terms as we go on with our discussion during the discussion session. And those things too are not allowed. Please stick to the rules of the game. Now with the conclusion. With the conclusion, you need to check for the following. How does your result relate to the original question or objectives outlined in the introduction? Now, in the introduction, as I said earlier on, you told us you're going to propose something, you're going to improve upon a model by introducing a new model. How does the result that you got relate to what you said in the introduction? Please, you need to tell us all those things. And then the second one is, can you reach your conclusion smoothly after your discussion? Sometimes it's difficult to reach out to the conclusion smoothly because of how we presented our work. And the next one is, do you provide interpretation for each of your results presented? Now, you need to. It's very, very important. Are your results consistent with what other investigators have reported, or are there any differences? Why? Now, when you were doing your discussions, as I said earlier on, you discuss and then you tell them based on A or B, your result seems to be better, like, or when you are doing your evaluation, based on A and B result that your experiment showed, it clearly states, or it clearly shows that your results is better, or there's a difference between what they had and what you have. And what is causing that? Please, you need to tell us all those things. And then after that, you tell us, are there any limitations? If there are any limitations, let us know. Because some of these limitations will also help us to also project whether in the future work, we also solve those problems. And then there are certain things that we are not supposed to do, as we all can see. Make statement that, do not make statement that go beyond what the result can support. Sometimes at the conclusion level, if you are not careful, you are tempted to just be speaking English because you finish and then you have a lot of English in your pocket. So you want to just, it's like releasing your arsenals. This is not where you release those arsenals. And then as you do that, you begin to implicate yourself. So from abstract introduction, methodology, discussion and results coming, you could see you are doing very well, but just the mere fact of you introducing something that go beyond the result, somebody will reject this paper. Not that the paper is not good, but the cohesion is gradually getting lost because of what you did. Now, this is a typical example of how somebody, the paper that I use in most of my examples, this is a typical example of how somebody wrote his conclusion. And I just love the way the person wrote his conclusion. You could see everything is on point. And then the side that I also love so much, the latter part, you see, in future work, we will enhance the security protection on lawful evidence by considering data leakages, attacks, and designing detection mechanism, which means there were some limitations in what he did. And those things also calls for future work to be done. Now, these are some of the suggested length of a full article. Now, this one happens to be some of the standard for the Springer type of articles. You could see each of them and all the sessions must have a particular number of manuscripts. As I said earlier on, when you get the sample paper from the journal that you intend sending your paper to, you could see how each of the sessions or each of the subsessions were written and the number of pages for that particular manuscript has. By so doing, please, you stick to that method so that you don't make mistakes or you don't overwrite for unnecessary rejection. What I personally notice is it's important you keep your work small and simple in the initial stage so that you don't overwrite, and then as you write more, you complicate yourself, you mix up things, and then you make a lot of mistakes. Now, one of the things that catches my attention so much is you can see here, when you come to figures, at the figures session, you see they are saying you should have 6 to 8 figures, and then the table 1 to 3 tables. Please take note of that. This happens to be one of the things that this particular journal was talking about. Now, here, acknowledgement, references. I wouldn't want us to bother ourselves so much with the references because in most of the templates that we use, as you write, the references will be generated. But acknowledgement, every paper has its own way of writing the acknowledgement. Some of them will write acknowledgement, trying to acknowledge those who funded your project. Others too will accept acknowledgement from, the acknowledgement is in the form of those who helped in their research work. So please, that is why I said earlier on, you need a sample of a paper from the particular journal that you intend sending your paper to. Now, with the supplementary materials, most times it becomes optional. It becomes optional. With most of the journal, it becomes optional. If the journal demands that, please don't hesitate to add it to your paper whenever you are submitting it. Now, one will ask, why do we sometimes have these supplementary materials? We normally have some of these supplementary materials because your research, your results, the results, you see, as I said earlier on, this, the last table that we had, it was, you need to present 5 to 8 figures, and then 1 to 3 figures. But sometimes your result might produce more than 8 figures, or more than 3 figures. By so doing, please you present them in the supplementary material and then add them to the document for submission. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Thank you too.
Any question?
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mr. Kwabena Usajimai,
Yeah.
not known as Jack, whose real name is Jack. Sorry. Well, to some of us, it had been AKA, if not for today. But thank you for that clarification. And I'm very pleased with the way you went about telling us how to structure our research work in terms of paper, publications, and other things. With this and other things, I will call on members. If there are any questions, I mean, we had the first session, which was focused on research, picking a research topic and other things like the basis of research, the fundamentals of research. And then we have this one, which is talking about the structure of publications and other things. I'll call on members. If there are any questions that you'd like to put, we have 5 minutes. Please bring out your questions, and then we have our resource persons to answer them. Then we move to the next session. Hello? Anyone with a question?
Yeah.
Hello, members. Anyone with a question? If you have any question, our resource persons are ready to answer you. There might be something baffling that is boggling your mind. There might be a bug that you want clarification.
Mr. Moderator, I think somebody has raised his hand. Oh, two people actually.
Okay, so I have Ejesa. Yes, Ejesa, please go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'm walking outside, so you may probably hear some horns of cars and stuff. So yeah, my yeah, my question goes to Jack. Is it
Yeah.
Jack Ma or Jack GH or Jack? Yeah. So it goes to Jack. Yeah. All right. So what I want to know is you mentioned in your presentation you said something like methodology paper, and I'm a little bit confused. So if you can draw a little dichotomy between a research methodology and methodology paper, I think I'll be grateful on that. And also, what I've come to realize is most of the research, especially when it comes to these. Okay, I am doing computer science, so if you come to our area, it's much of like a qualitative comparison of results. Like you try to improve a model and you show your results and you compare to the previous ones, like you mentioned. So is that one, or can that one fall under uh, like a qualitative way of research? So please, if you can help me clear the news on that.
Okay.
Okay, so Jack, I think you
Yeah.
have a question for you. Yeah, other than let me read another one for you.
Okay.
There is another one that has been posted by Akushia from Nanjing. She is saying that, please, can you write your abstract and introduction first? Usually those sessions are difficult to write. So we have two questions.
Let me tackle Akusia's question first before I proceed to Ajesa's question. I don't know whether I got his name correct.
That is it.
Okay. Sister Akusia, you know, when you are doing those in the sciences, the computer science, software engineering, and the rest, whenever you are doing writing it's important to write the introduction first. Finish everything before you write the abstract. You don't start by writing abstract then to introduction. We don't do it that way. You write introduction before you finish with the whole set, introduction, methodology to conclusion, and then you write abstract. That is how we do it. I don't know whether your question is answered. By that time, you might have had your experiment, everything, your figure, your discussion, everything is on point. So the next thing is just present your abstract. So never write your abstract first before introduction, please.
Let me also, MC, let me also add something to what Jack said. The abstract is supposed to be a kind of summary, you know, a concise words that shows what you have done. So if you have not finished your work, if you have not written everything, you can never, you know, write an abstract. You can never show the abstract to people, because when you remember, if you go to online and you are searching for a paper, the online is the abstract is the first thing you see. So if you read the abstract, then the abstract should give you a fair knowledge of what or the content of the paper. So it is important that you finish everything. I know what you are talking about. I've also, you know, falling to this before trying to write my abstract quickly before I go on with my work, but it is not a good practice. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Please,
Then
we have Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus,
Yes,
please, are you
yes.
here?
Yes,
Zacchaeus.
I'm here.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, me. My question has to. I think I will direct my question to the prof.
Okay.
And the first one has to do with the fact that he said that as a student you must develop your own topic. And then I wanted to ask that sometimes you meet a supervisor and they already have their own projects. They are expecting certain things that they want to do. So you would meet them and it will be a difficult task to be able to convince them to going into another topic or into a different project. So in this way, how do you resolve that kind of a problem? And then the next, and then I have a next question. He also said that you may start with a simple way of doing your experiment, and then probably you get to a point, you go ahead or you return, or you get a different topic. I think that part he was talking about you doing something, then you don't have passion for it, then you have to, you have to divert or you have to move to something else. So with respect to time management, if you find out that you don't have passion and you have to change to a different topic, with time, how do we manage all these so that you can still graduate in time?
Now let's start with it. Let's start with your first question that related to the topic. I would always prefer that you have the topic which is basically interests you, or the one which basically goes ahead with the passion which you have in mind. Now, many times you are very correct that you may be told to work on a topic which your professor has, and there basically, and the professor is too strict to allow you to work with your own passion. Well, then I would say it's just a bad luck you have. Simple. Because the professor, the concerned person should also understand the passion behind the work. A PhD student is not someone whom I'll get my work done because I have a student with it. So that's what the things are. And usually the topics are such which you really do not want to work on. You lose the steam in between. And if it is like that, then I'm not saying go to the experiment, not to the experiment part of it. But when you are there in the literature review, or when you are writing a synopsis, at that time, if you feel that, no, this is not giving any interest to me, then I was telling that you can now change your topic by convincing your advisor. But once you have everything is true, the synopsis is true, and now that you are basically, you have defended your synopsis, and now you are going for an experiment, then it is advisable never to go back from the experiment which you are going around, unless the experiment itself fails. Many times experiments also fail because of many reasons. Once your synopsis is through, it is expected that yes, the work which you want to work on, or your passion, it has matched with your passion, or it has matched with the type of work you have, which you are expected to do. Then there is no way to go back, because if you try to go back out at that particular period of time, you may have to again write another synopsis and then go through the academic council, defend it, and it takes a lot of time. So all these things going back and forth finishes or ends before you defend your synopsis, not the experiment itself. You cannot go, because once you have defended the synopsis, it indicates that it has to go through the academic council. It goes from the department to the dean to the academic council, and then it is expected that this is the type of work you are expected to do. But in between, if you think that no, I don't like to do it, then you have to restart again. That's where I said the times you cannot do it. Hence, you have to be very, very careful when you are choosing a topic. Now, why I don't want the topics many times. I believe before I started, one of the gentlemen was saying something when related to the 5G, which related to the 5G things, which his advisor wanted to say. And then he said that it was very difficult for me. Yes, because when you have the 5G technology is the one which your advisor wants you to work. But when you go back to Ghana or when you go back to a country, do you think that the 5G technology will be in your country by the time you complete your PhD? No, it may not. And if it is not, then what happens is you earn a degree, you go back to your country, and after maybe the 5G technology comes to your country after 3 or 4 years, by the time maybe you're doing something else and you have lost touch with the technology itself. Then you have to restart your things again. So try to take a topic which basically you can use as soon as you land up in your country, and the country itself and the people of the country or the government of the country gets benefited from your studies, isn't it? This high technology, it looks very good. It looks very, very good. It looks very, very beautiful. But will that technology be useful to your country as soon within 6 months or 1 year or 2 years of your landing in your country? If it is so, go ahead. If not, then choose a topic which benefits your country, or maybe the society as a whole. That's what my things are. Am I clear?
Yeah, very well. Thank you.
Because if I take someone else's, for example, if I have seen few of my colleagues, they did their masters and PhD from Germany and Norway with a very, very high tech things going around in biotechnology. But by the time when they arrived in Ethiopia, the labs were not ready. We didn't have the infrastructure at hand. And after 6, 7 months, 8 months, 1 year or 2 years, they literally forgot what they did in PhD. Then how did the country benefit from that? And what did they benefit from that? Because they could not keep pace with the developments which are occurring in that particular field. Am I clear?
Yeah.
Look it into the long-term perspective. It's a degree which you get. It's your personal benefit. I understand it. But at the end of the day, the society has to be benefited. The country has to be benefited. Will the country or the society really be benefited with the type of work which you are doing?
Thank you.
That's a $1 million question. You have to keep it in mind. At times, you have to be patriotic enough towards your motherland. Otherwise, the degree goes in a waste, because you learn a very high technology thing, a very, very sophisticated thing, and when you go back to your country, the country's infrastructure is not yet ready for that. Then you are waiting. By the time maybe the infrastructure comes out, it's 5 years down the lane. But by that time, the technology has changed globally, and you have forgotten most of the things or most of the laboratory works which you did. Then what happens? I have seen in most of the students who have done their PhD abroad, and they couldn't utilize, the country couldn't utilize them, and they couldn't utilize it when they went back. So please keep it in mind.
Thank you.
Yes,
in fact, there's the bitter truth. More times we students have to battle it with our professors and our supervisors over choosing topics, because we have to told their lays. Not so easy.
Yeah,
Thank you, Professor, for answering. Well, we have some few other questions that were raised by some people, and I will call on Jack. Jack, please, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. We have a question that was asked by
by Ejesa.
Ejesa. No, Ejesa asked the question together with Akusha. You answered that there was another one.
No, I've not answered the JSAR's question.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Then please go ahead, because we have to get the test session rolling.
Okay. With the JSAR's question, with the methodology papers that I was talking about, let's say in the field of the sciences, like as you were saying in computer science, when you are working on like you want to work on a new algorithm, or you want to propose a new framework or a new model, those are the things that I was talking about. And then when you finish, how do you evaluate or test the performance of your algorithm? That is where you do the comparison. So you compare it with existing models to see the efficiency of your model. That is what I was talking about when I said, when I made mention of methodology papers. Eddie, are you okay? And let me give you a typical example. Yeah. Let's say you are working on blockchain, and then you want to improve on the proof of work. Let's say there's an algorithm that you've heard of, maybe game theory, and you want to use the game theory to improve upon the proof of work. Now, your application of the game theory to proof of work means you are proposing a new algorithm in the area of blockchain. So when you finish, you need to compare your new algorithm to existing algorithm that was using other proof of work methods. By so doing, you've been able to come out with a methodology kind of paper. Yes, are you okay?
In fact, let me add it to it. It should be the ones when you are comparing it with the ones which is basically existing, which is most popular in the market, and the ones which are basically the best going around at that particular period of time for that particular topic which you are working on. Now, the efficiency of your study will be compared against those, and how your study is, or your algorithm is able to basically is superior than that existing one. Superiority can be in basis of technology, it can be on basis of economy, it can be basis of basically the user friendly. In different ways, you can look into the one which is better than the one which is existing, and then you can say, yes, the algorithm which you have used is maybe it is cheaper, maybe the using is cheaper than the one which is existing, or maybe it is much more user friendly. It can be, and then that's how you compare your results. But the ones which you have to compare has to be the one which is market accepted and which is the one going around in the market in the best possible.
All right.
Yes, are you okay?
Yeah, thank you very much. So basically, the methodology paper is different from the whole research methodology thing, right?
That's also methodology paper is also research which you have carried out. It's nothing. That's something of that you're looking at a different angle. But your methodology is where you are comparing an existing method, the efficiency of an existing method in vis-a-vis the method which you are suggesting, and you are comparing whether your particular method is better than that method, existing method, in whatever way you can look into it.
Okay, so actually my problem here is because if you look at methodologies in research or research methodologies, like we have something like an action research, quantitative research, qualitative research. I mean, those the rest. So yeah. I wanted to know, is that one different from the methodological paper or methodology paper?
See here what happens is you are saying like the action research, qualitative and quantitative. Now what happens is the results which you are getting has to be compared, and the results have to be basically evaluated either qualitatively or quantitatively, and that is where you are going. It is nothing you are doing. The results which you are comparing of the efficiency of your work vis-a-vis the one which is existing, it has to be compared. It can be a qualitative comparison, it can be a quantitative comparison. If it is a quantitative, that means you have the hard data, which basically shows you that yes, the one which you are working on, which you have proposed, is better than the others. And when it comes to the qualitative, means where the users, maybe the users of your product, of the or your research product which you have developed, they come across with their own ideas, or they have their own, maybe they like it or something which you basically cannot be quantified, but maybe you can use the codes, and then you can even analyze the results and you can get the thing. So it is basically the qualitative and the quantitative are tools, or basically those are the things which you are using to evaluate the findings of your research.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And also, okay, I think I'll ask my next question if we proceed with it.
Yeah.
Part.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ajesa. Sorry, I have to cut you. We have to move to the third session and get things rolling. We are already behind time. Okay. So, Mr. Kingsley, please, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes. Okay. So, he is called Kingsley. I call him King. All right. His name, even on the distance, is saying King. So I will give the microphone back to King for him to roll and tell us what he has for us. King.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me quickly set up all rolling. Yeah, can you please see my
Yeah, we can. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's start with how to formulate an argument. So I think Professor has already talked a lot about it, and Jack also talked some things about how to formulate an argument in a paper. Let me quickly start, because we are behind time. I will go through as fast as possible, but I will ask everybody to just jot some things down. Per the slide, you see them, so that the question and answering can go as fast as possible. Yeah. Okay, so a little bit about me. I do cognitive modeling, and I do it in relation to climate and money. And of course, I love data science competitions too. And I also do machine learning and dynamic programming. Yeah. So today, I am very, very honored to help us understand some things like arguments, and of course, the evidence you use to back our arguments, and organization whenever we are writing a paper. So let's start. What we can say about arguments, arguments are very, very important in every particular paper, or maybe your thesis, right? They are the central idea behind everything your paper is about. So it's in cohesion with your topic and your key statement, of course, and that's where we usually capture the arguments. And what we can say, just by three short definitions, it's a reason given in a proof or a rebuttal. And of course, you need to go in a certain discourse, intend to persuade people. And also, it entails a coherent series of statements supported by evidence, and of course, leading from a premise to the conclusion. So what we can say about this is, because we are academicians, we understand this carefully. Like, they are not that you're fighting with anybody, with your readers or your professor or anything, but it's just like something you want to put forth. It's more of a claim. And of course, you have to back your claim up with some evidence and some analysis, right? And I think Professor touched a little bit on it, but we will go a little bit deeper.
So quickly, I'll give everybody about 15 seconds. Let's see these things. The one in, we have two papers here. One paper is trying to describe to readers what happens physiologically to a person's brain when maybe they eat chocolate, right? And another paper is trying to persuade readers that chocolate in moderation has health benefits. So out of these two, we can, it's so obvious that the first one is an informative kind of statement, and the second one is quite argumentative, simply because you need to tell people why eating chocolate gives health benefits. So it's like you are more of claiming that in moderation, you can get, let's say you can be in good health when you eat chocolate. So when you put off this, you can't just go away and you say, hey, I'm done with my paper. You have to, of course, back it up. So in order to establish an argument for your paper, we need to consider these 5 things. And there are a lot more things you can consider, but we will just try to look at these things. 1, the argument should be, let's say, the main point or main points of your paper. So mostly it's captured in the problem statement or the thesis statement, as we will call it, but it has to capture everything, including like your title, and everything has to be in perfect synchrony with each other, right? And also it's a claim. So you should make it in such a way that somebody could disagree to it. It's not like we want people to disagree with our paper, but whenever you make such an argument, we realize that it's something peculiar that somebody will be interested in, and the person will try to put some holes in there, and then you can use some evidence to back it up, right? And of course, when you write your problem statement or your thesis statement, you tell the reader what the paper will have, right? What the paper will have. So it directs the reader into the right set of mind to read reading the paper. And of course, you have to put it in the introduction. It doesn't have to be anywhere. It has to be in the introduction. And your evidence and other things will be supported as you write the paper. So there's a tip that we usually use. So 3 tips here. 1, can somebody disagree with what I'm saying? So whenever you write it, you try to cast a certain shadow light on it to see if you're giving an information or you are making or you are putting forth an argument. So you don't have to tell people or try to describe something as your problem statement. No, you have to put forth a solid claim of what you did, what you researched about and everything, and try to back it up later. So that's the first question you ask yourself. The second question is, can you base your evidence on scholarly evidence? I mean, can you base your argument on scholarly evidence? So most of the times, I think for computer science disciplines and other disciplines like that, it's not much of an issue, but for social science and others, it more comes, their arguments or their evidence supported with opinion or maybe morality. And I'll dive deeper into that later. And of course, is it narrow enough so that you can discuss to detail and also with very solid evidence, or it's just too broad that you can't really exhaust it? So that's one thing you have to know. So a quick example is this. So you can come up with a topic, as Professor said. Maybe your topic is about, let's say, a discussion of employee engagement and how it relates to employee motivation. That is your topic. That is not a problem statement. It's not a thesis statement or an argumentative one, right? Rather, you can turn this topic into something like this. Managers should focus on increasing employee engagement. Why? You claim that it will translate to increased employee motivation and thus better business outcomes. You are putting forth such a claim that somebody can question you. How can we get like such business outcomes? You claim that motivation can. Where is your proof? What are you doing? So this is how to structure from the title, let's say your idea and your title of the paper, an argumentative statement inside of your paper. So your topic is there, your abstract will try to capture the argument a little, and then in your introduction, you really expand it, and then you support your entire work. So that's how to do it. And progress through it, it can start like that. It starts so big, right? Let's say, for example, employee engagement and employee motivation are important. So that's how it can start. And as you write the paper, you'll be just changing it. And as you revise the paper, it will change to maybe management should focus on increasing, which translates to the other things, right? And we should know that our thesis should be flexible until your final draft, right? So the statement you make, like you're putting forth, just like our brother Jack introduced abstract, right? It has to be very flexible that it can change. So you don't have to go really specific at the start of the paper, because it might be like you have negative results and you have to change some things and other things. And of course, it's your argument you put forth for the reader. So it has to be broad, but as you get specific into knowing your results and how it really, you're going to write your discussion and other things, then you quickly start revising your arguments that's in introduction in chapter 1 and maybe in your abstract. Yeah. And where can we get the evidence to support it? We can get it from peer-reviewed journals, of course, books and scholarly websites, right? So media shouldn't be based on, let's say, some people would like to base their arguments, let's say, through a blog or maybe a video they watched on YouTube and other things. All of these are all sources of information. They might not be sources of evidence to support our argumentative writing. So we have to be careful about where like we are getting our evidence. Other than that, you give an evidence and then your evidence wouldn't be able to support your very well, maybe not support it at all. Yeah. So to just guide us, these are some of the do's and don'ts we can just go through, right? So the thesis statement, problem statement, or the argument, what is really describing your paper and directing people to the conclusion will be, let's say, use evidence from scholarly sources. We said that. Use facts, statistics, and evidence, of course. You have to analyze your evidence with logic and with reason, right? So when you're using logic and reason, maybe sometimes it doesn't really make sense to the lay person, but because it's logically, let's say, advancing, people can understand the point you're coming from and they can follow through your paper. Of course, when you put logic, you have to also address the opposing side, what people might think of what you are putting forth. And you try to refute the opposing side with fairness and with respect. So fairness and respect means you can even give evidence for the opposing thoughts and then use that to solidify your idea in your paper, right? Like you just throw it somewhere or you just pretend you never saw that paper. These are all simple tricks people use to write paper, but for write a very top paper and other things, you have to respect these things. And of course, we have certain things you have to avoid. Belief, opinion. So let's say, for example, when we talk about belief, it could be your political belief or your religious belief or any other thing. You can just avoid it if you don't have a scholarly evidence to back it up. Yeah. And using phrases like I think and I believe, of course, will thwart your argument. Yeah. It means you're not even sure of the fact that you're backing it, like you're just, it's your own opinion. That's how it sounds like. And of course, thesis based on moral claims has to be avoided. So I just give a quick example. Somebody can say, let's say abortion is bad. The mere fact that you have said bad means you're making a moral claim, right? Instead of saying maybe abortion to maybe women's health is not something blah, 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 right? And you just use bad, it will make a moral claim. And to the reviewer or to the person who doesn't share in your belief, that the person might reject your paper. That's one thing that they do, yeah. And of course, you shouldn't assume that readers will understand your point without analysis. So sometimes we make a vague point or argumentative statement, and we think it's so trivial, it's so intuitive that everybody should understand. And you don't back it up with analysis. So that will raise questions, yeah. And believing in opposing sides, right? Just trying to not address properly what might counter your claim, and you're just addressing it partially. it can come back for a second review, third review, and maybe a rejection. Yeah, so we have to be careful about these things. And of course, how do we check the quality of our arguments, right? Make sure, as we said, statistics, data, let it speak, right? Your studies experiment, let it back it up. Facts supported by research and peer-reviewed sources. And things like jokes, maybe poems, personal experience, and other things, try very, very much to avoid them. Try very, very much to avoid them. Sometimes you can cite a website, which is a blog, and tomorrow there will be no blog there. So if a reviewer is going through your paper, just see somebody writing there, you just go and check, but there is no evidence to support it, then there might be a problem. Yeah, you have to be careful about this. But then how do we know the difference between what is an opinion and then an evidence? So that's how to know the difference. These are two statements. Let's say, for example, today, many students have said the high school curricula are boring, unimaginative, and based on rote memorization. That is perfect, right? But it's an opinion. It's not really, we don't see any evidence in that, right? But then you can go this way. Maybe because high school history curricula are based on rote memorization, visual and of course connectedness often do not get support they need or something. And you have a citation to that. So everybody can go to that paper, just look at the evidence or say, oh, yeah, it's true. That means that you have to really write your evidence so well. And let's say, for example, I have this. There's an evidence. You have to always support your evidence with analysis, right? So this is the evidence. According to recent data, 88% of online learners report high satisfaction with flexibility of their courses. And you've given the evidence. It's so perfect, right? But you need to further extend it with some analysis. For example, you can be citing the same paper, but two different people writing topics, two different topics might use the same information, but depending on their argumentative statement, the papers will address two different issues in society. So that's why analysis of the evidence is so important. Once you make the claim, you support it with the evidence, and then you make analysis using that evidence. So as is clearly written, the first person tried to say that the vast majority of online learners have chosen to get their education online because of the flexibility it provides. So the first person is trying to show the flexibility provision is attracting more online learners. But the second person is not really basing it on flexibility, but on the needs of the online learners, like they need the flexibility, right? So the first one is really talking about flexibility, attracting more people. The second one is trying to say that online learners need some things, for example, flexibility. And these might be two different papers by using the same evidence, right? So the analysis is quite important. But there are so many ways to do that, to use the evidence. The first one is quoting. So people are afraid to quote, but according to scholarly advice, we can quote, and then we can always give the reference to the quoting. So this is word for word. If it's such important, then you can, especially in your thesis, right? But if you're writing a paper, people want to avoid this and put it in their own writing, right? So we have the dropped quote, right? And that's what we should avoid. For example, the first one, you cite everything and then you put your quote and then the reference. It can sometimes be as plagiarism. So you should avoid this. Rather, you should put it in your own words, right? Let's say, blah, 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 observe that, patients, blah, 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 blah. And then you put the citation there. That is more preferred in writing, yeah. And of course, the second one is paraphrasing. So when you talk about paraphrasing, like people get happy because they tend to maybe copy from a paper and try to put it in their own words and write in this paper. It's so important, but when you do it, you still have to give citations for that. You have to support that evidence or your analysis of the evidence with a good scholarly evidence, right? The citation. So don't think that you can paraphrase and not cite the person. You have to always cite the person. Other than that, maybe not now, but 20 years later, when you become a very good professor, somebody can look at your paper and your professorship will be withdrawn. Yeah, simply because they think you plagiarized a paper or something. Yeah. And of course, why do we paraphrase? So this is what we don't really think about. And that is the point of paraphrasing. Once you paraphrase somebody's work, let's say somebody's statement, it gives you the chance to direct your readers to your own understanding and how did you understand your paper, right? So it's not like you're just borrowing and paraphrasing and pasting in there. You have the idea from the paper. You can put it in your own ideas and how you want your readers to understand what you want to tell them. And that is the power of paraphrasing, right? So it helps the reader see your academic voice, of course, and you can write the whole thing through your own ideas. That's why we paraphrase. And how do we really organize the arguments? So especially in a thesis, or let's say the dissertation, we can see these things here. First, you have to introduce something. Then, of course, your claim, you support it, and you support, and you support, right? And of course, you reiterate the statement and the main point. So I think Jack talked a lot about this one. And I'll give just an example, but we will all say that you have to start big, go just more specific and very specific so that your evidence can support it well. If it's too broad, the evidence wouldn't be able to fully justify everything. If it's too narrow, maybe you wouldn't get a certain evidence to point to that claim. So you have to really start well and get your evidence and then try to narrow it carefully to your argument of the paper. So let's say, for example, this is one way to put it. The thesis goes like this: managers should focus on increasing employee engagement, which translates to increased employee motivation and thus better business outcomes. What is your first claim? Importance of employee engagement and motivation, right? Second claim will come to relationship between employee and motivation. Third claim might be how employees engage and how employee engagement and motivation relates to their performance, right? And of course, you can have a fourth claim and fifth and sixth, but you have to put all of them in different paragraphs when you are writing your thesis or your dissertation, yeah. But more specifically, this is where you put the claim very, very hard, right? So you can see there is a difference between the 23 and 24. I intentionally made it like that, but because of time, we skip it. But the central idea is once you get your main argument, that's your problem statement or what you want the reader to get from your work, get a claim, put your evidence down, get your claim, put your evidence down, get a claim, put your evidence down. Now let your work try to analyze, whether quantitatively or qualitatively, try to analyze everything and support this evidence about these claims. And once you do that, you can have a very good paper throughout, yeah. And of course, once you are done with this and you are done with your paper or your thesis, you need to revise. And these are just quick tips that can help you revise, right? You have to keep in mind, does this really support the idea? That's one thing, right? Does your evidence click with what you want to tell people? So mostly you have to get it on a sheet. Like what I do, I copy and paste everything. So once I have my problem statement on a paper, as I'm reading through my document, I make sure that everything I'm saying in the paper just corresponds with this. It shows the claim, yeah. So that's one thing you do. And don't be afraid to make change if you find new evidence, or don't afraid to tweak your thesis if they don't match. Sometimes because you are using somebody's quotes or something, you want something to happen. Getting negative results are also a part of research. You can write a research and you have negative results and you put it forth, right? But everybody wants to get a positive, let's say, research, results and it affects research in another way. So even if you have negative research or you have evidence that doesn't support it, throw it away, get a new one. Or even if you don't even have evidence for it, then try to look for one, because maybe you are not doing the right thing. So it can help you. And of course, you have to do some pairing evidence analysis between your evidence that you have and then take the best one to just support it. Yeah. And of course, after everything, you have to reverse outline. So before you write your paper, and as Jack illustrated to us, first you can sketch the structure of your paper before you write it. So introduction, I'll talk about this. I'll give this claim. I'll give this claim. I'll tell my users to understand this one, and I'll do this to conclusion. That's one. After you finish writing your paper, you have to go back to back it up with everything. Read through, make sure it goes through, give it to your friend, make sure they read through, and for them to point out certain things you said, but you didn't give evidence for them. Yeah. So in this session, we've been able to understand what an argument is. It's not a fight with anybody, but they are barely claims that you tell people, and it helps people understand your idea and your research. And you have to support it with evidence through quoting, through paraphrasing, understand why we paraphrase so you can turn it into your own words. And then you organize your thesis well. And I think Jack addressed that one. And of course, you have to revise when you are done with your argumentation, and people will read and try to question your work, and then you can get evidence to back it up. Yeah. So any questions? Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Nati. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kingsley. Thank you so much. Wow, that was a lot and deep. So I'm taking over from Mr. Nati, and I think I would allow the last speaker to talk so that we can take questions and then end the program. So without much ado, I would like to call on Dr. Benjamin Kluger-Brown to also give his talk. Dr. Kluger-Brown, please, you have the space.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, please. I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's been interesting. You know, the first three speakers have been so helpful to us, you know, and I think that I wouldn't talk much. The only thing I'm going to do now is to, after we have identified our problems and we have structured our paper and we have organized the way we should approach our arguments, then the problem lies with where to publish, especially if you are getting ready to publish a paper. So oftentimes these problems crop up. People ask you these questions. So I think I will just share my idea with us, and then let's see how it goes. So I'll share my PPT. Please, could you give me the chance to share my PPT?
Please, just a moment. Okay, so I think you can share now.
Okay. Okay. All right, so the topic is a bit, some people might seem to have passed through this question, I can say maybe 10 times in their research life, where to publish your idea or what you have come up with. So there are a couple of things that I think that most researchers will agree on. So what we are going to talk about is not exhaustive, but I think most people will agree with us. Now, so this, I'm going to talk about three things where consider your school and your professor when you are going to publish a paper. Also, what to consider when you trying to find a place to publish your paper. Then the final one is where to search. So you realize that we have a problem, like some people have come up with a very good research paper, but due to maybe due to time or due to pressure from school or professor, they in a haste send their papers to predator journals, and at the end of the day, although the content of their paper is good, but you realize that their paper will not have enough readership or impact factor. So it is important that we discuss this in a short while. So quickly, let me move to the first one. So first, if you want to publish, you have everything, you have organized everything, and now you want to publish a paper. First, consider your school, because your school has a set of requirements or a place or journal or conferences that they feel is well suited for the school. Remember, the school in which you are doing your research, they also have a standard. And so you should make sure that you know what standard the school is requiring from you. The next thing is that you have to go to, so you, before you consider submitting your paper, some schools, for instance, in USTC, for instance, you can get this information from your school coordinator or your graduate school. I remember most people will come and say, okay, I don't know whether where I'm submitting this paper is being accepted by my school or not. So I normally tell them, but you should go to your school coordinator. So sometimes you go to your school coordinator doesn't have enough information about where to publish your paper. Then you should move to your graduate school. It is important. Do not see this issue as a trivial thing, because many a times there are students who publish papers and then during their graduation time, the graduate school tells them, well, we see that you have published a paper, but the journals or the conferences where you submitted your paper are not in our database, or we don't consider these journals. So it is important that you do this. Now, so why are we saying this? Because you are doing the research, although you want to become a researcher, but then you also want to graduate from the school. So if for all your 3 years, your 4 years, you have done research, and at the end of the day, your publication, you have had maybe 4 or 5 publications, and all the 5 publications are not up to the standard of the school.
Hello, Doc. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, so sorry, I had a bit of a problem with my network. So you should consider your graduation requirements. This is important. Now the next thing is that your professor's suggestion. So why am I saying your professor's suggestion? Because your professor has a lot of I'll say experience in publishing papers. So your professor might have a fair knowledge about where to submit your paper and whether these journals or conferences are good. Now, another thing is that your professor belongs to a group, and the lab in which you are working, for instance, in engineering or computer science or the sciences, the lab has a focus. So then the lab has a certain category of journals that they want you to publish in. So then it will help that you have a suggestion from your professor. Now, normally, some people will say, well, the journal that my supervisor or my professor suggested is too high. I don't think I can make it, and I don't think it will help me to graduate. Well, yes, sometimes you find these problems popping up here and there, but I think it is also good that you ask opinion from your professor. Sometimes your professor can even give you a suggestion. Now, so like I'm saying, his experience, and then he knows uh, predators, he knows the predatory journals because he has been in the system for a long time. And then he knows about the contribution of those journals that he wants you to submit to. It's not to say that you don't know what you are doing, but asking for such opinions will go a long way to help you in getting your paper accepted. Now, let's go to what to consider. Now, first of all, to submit a paper, you should know what category of paper you should, journals you should be considering. I think this, we all know, but some people will say, well, is my paper SCI or SCIE or SSCI or whatever? Now remember, that is the reason why you should go to your graduate school. So a couple of friends will come and say, oh, well, I submitted a paper to maybe EI journal, and then my school or my professor is saying it's not enough. So when you ask for these opinions from the school and then your professor, I think for this first step, you might have known where to submit the paper to. So you can go to PubMed, which is very popular, or maybe Scopus, and then find out which SCI are there. So here, normally what I do is I go to the collaborate.com, and there you can find the category of journals there. And then under each category, you know exactly what you are required, because the category of paper also can be a factor in the scope that they are looking for. So you might find out that EI papers may be more interested in maybe method in engineering, whilst SCI papers may be more into maybe uh, uh, primary experiments or other things. So these are the things that you should consider when you want to submit a paper. Next, you should also make sure, this is important, you should also make sure the available subject area in that journal. So actually we will revisit this in a short while, where you have a paper, you have a topic, but you don't know which category or which subject area it fits in. So this is where you should also do a little bit of research to know which subject area is good for your paper. Then the final thing here, the next thing here is that you have to read the scope of the paper, of the journal. We fall into this trap where we rush into submitting a paper and then we get rejected. We submit it again, it gets rejected. For maybe you did not read the scope very well. Some papers may say they are looking for method papers, but your paper is not a method paper. So when you submit, the rejection rate for you will be very high. And then that will affect maybe your, let's say, your aims of becoming a good researcher. You know, it affects you mentally and all that. So reading the scope is very, very important. Now, first of, you should also find out whether you have a wide readership or a targeted readership. So for instance, if you're in my field, for instance, in life science and technology, it is an interdisciplinary field. So if we have a wide range of readers, we have people from psychology, we have people from engineering, we have people from computer science, because we do some work in machine learning and deep learning. So our area is wide. So if our area is wide, you should know that you have a lot of people who are going to read your paper from different fields. However, if your field is a specific field, okay, a very narrow field, then you should also consider who are going to read your paper. So if you know the kinds of people or the category of people going to read your paper, then revising your paper will be directed towards those people. And I think sometimes it is important because if you submit a paper to a journal where the reviewers are not well versed in whatever you are submitting, then your rejection rate will be very high. Now, also you should consider how popular is the journal among your peers. This sounds a little bit tricky, but I can tell you it is important. If you know that maybe the lab in which you are working, or maybe the school where you are working, they've submitted a lot of paper to this high journal, and the acceptance rate is about maybe 70% or 80%, then you can assume, not sufficient, but you can assume that submit your paper to that journal, the acceptance rate will be very high for you, because then the lab has developed this approach in considering their scope, and then submitting your paper there will make your the targets or the scope around that journal very specific to you, and therefore you will have confidence that it will be accepted. So these are some of the things that you should consider in it. Now another thing is that, is the journal included in electronic database? So there are a lot of predatory journals out there, and they will continuously send you emails. I know a lot of people have had this before, especially if you've had your name in a certain paper before. Over the years, you'll be getting emails telling you, oh, we want you to submit your paper to our journal. But you should also be careful. You should check whether this journal is included in popular electronic databases. The next thing is that, so it's the same thing I'm talking about. So now if those predatory journals send you emails that you should submit to their journal, remember, some of them will tell you, well, send it to our email. That should give you first hint that it might not be a good journal, because if every good journal, in my opinion, should be available online, should have a readership online. The submission process should be online, so that you can, everyone can see what you are doing. But if they tell you, submit your paper to us, via email, then you should really, really reconsider submitting the paper to that journal. Now, another thing is that peer review period. So this is important. Before you submit any paper, check the peer review period. Check the return. Check how many months does it take for your first response. How many months does it take for when it's accepted? How many months or weeks does it take for publication? You should know all these things. The reason I'm saying this is that I found I fell into a problem where I submitted a paper, and the paper, I was expecting that within 3 months I should get my first response, and it took me almost 8 months. So if you know this, you know that it can take that long. If you like it, then you submit. If you don't like it, then you should consider another thing. Otherwise, it will waste your time. You'll be waiting for such a response for a long time, and it's basically wasting your time. And at the end of the day, it gets rejected. So it is to your disadvantage. Then the next thing is that you have online, or gone online, check the published papers. You realize that they have a section where they say submitted this day, this date, accepted this date, and published this date. Please be careful with those things. Look at the length from submission to publication. Then that will give you a fair idea of what the journal, how long the journal takes to publish your paper. Because if, for instance, you are in your final year PhD and you need that single paper, to top up your graduation, and you don't have this information, you submit a paper and it will take you almost a year, then it will be to your disadvantage. So you should take care of this. Now, to identify these predatory publishers or journals, first of all, some of them may not have the ISS and or DOIs. I know you may be forced, you may be tempted to publish a paper because you are behind time, but be careful. Some of them don't have this information, DOI or ISS. They will tell you, oh, submit, within 3 weeks or 1 month, we'll give you a feedback and all that. Please check this, check it. Check whether they have DOI or ISS number, because that is a standard for all publishers. Now, if you realize that their scope is too wide, like when you read the scope, you cannot actually find or identify a specific thing that the journal is about, because a journal is supposed to have a focus. So if you read their scope and it's too wide, it's too general, then you should suspect that it is not a very good journal for you. Another thing is that no transparency about article process charge or APS. Now, this is also another thing where you read, you don't find any information about how to even pay, whether it is open access or it is not open access. And if it is, how to even pay is a bit difficult. Some of them will tell you, we want you to send the money through some other means and all that. When you feel, you hear or you see those things, please consider, or you might have to reconsider submitting your paper to that journal. Now, another thing, like we have already said, poor online presence. So some of these journals they have like virtually no online presence or very little online presence. If you see something like this, please reconsider. The next thing is that the journal is not well indexed. So this is my issue. So the first time I wrote a paper, I submitted it somewhere, and within a month, I realized that I can't find whether it is SCI indexed or it is IE indexed. So I was looking for this over and over, and I realized that that journal was not indexed or doesn't have an index. So some of them will tell you, oh, our journal is being indexed by Scopus or blah, blah, blah. Please be careful with it. Otherwise, you waste your time. You submit a paper, they publish it for you, but then you go to your graduate school, they tell you that we can't find the index of this journal. This is important. Now, the final thing is that Officials of the journal use email address or free emails supplier like Gmail. So first you should find out what kind of information or addressing system they are using. So if, like I told you earlier, if a publisher or if a journal tells you to submit to through their personal emails, this might not be, maybe this might not be enough to say it's predatory, but it should give you a hint. It should give you a red flag that they are not authentic. So these are the things that you should consider when you want to submit a paper. And the next thing is that where to search. So at this point, I will do a little demo for you to see how you can do your search. There are a lot of ways that you can search for a journal that will fit your topic. So I will share I'll share a screen here to show how to do that. Okay. So imagine we have something like this, okay? We have, so this is one of the tools that I use to search for my paper. So in this field, you can see here, we have enter paper title. So you can enter the paper title or the abstract. So for me, I just entered my abstract. Then here you can also find out the fields where it fits in. Then you click on find. You wait for a while, and then it gives you, based on your abstract or your title or your keywords, it can suggest to you where to submit this paper. Actually, my abstract is full of things concerning the brain and blah, blah, blah. So it is suggesting to me to submit to this, and it will give you exactly where, how it's cited, you can see the impact factor, you can see, so it gives you a general idea of whether to submit to such a place or not. So these are some of the things that you should consider when submitting a paper. So I hope that I have not spent much time, and if there is any question, you can just hit me up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kluger Brown. Thank you so much. I think tonight we've really been pumped with so much knowledge, or should I say wisdom, with regards to research. At this point, I would like to take questions for our last two speakers, Mr. Kingsley and Dr. Kluger Brown. So if you have a question, kindly use the hand raiser option to raise your hand so that I can call you and you ask your question, or you can put it in the chat. Okay, so there is a question in the chat box. What is the difference between SCI, SCIE, EI, conference paper, and the like? So I don't know. Okay, I think for docs. So
yeah, it's for me. Thank you for this question. It is important. So as a PhD student or as a research student, you should be well versed in this kind of thing. So like first I said, you should know, first of all, go to your school. So I'm starting from this point. Go to your school, find out what kind of index system do they accept. Then you should also talk to your professor and then find out what kind of indexed levels does he want. So with all this, if you say SCI or SSCI and EI, then you should try to find out what are they. Now, for instance, the difference between SCI and SSCI in my field is that, for instance, I am into brain connectivity. We do a lot of engineering and we do a lot of machine learning, deep learning, and then we do brain diseases. Now, we also do something in psychology, but remember, psychology belongs to somewhere in the humanities. Okay, it belongs somewhere in the humanities. So if whatever I have written is mostly connected to the humanities, then I'll consider the SCIE, because then I'm combining the engineering, okay, with the science things that I have come up with. Now, SCI is purely, in my opinion, purely for the sciences, purely for the sciences. So you realize that if you belong to an engineering school, they will even rather prefer you send a paper to EI than SCI, because the engineering and then the sciences, there's a little bit of dichotomy there. So if my field, for instance, we combine the sciences and then the engineering. So if I send my paper to science, SCI, it's cool. If I send it to SCIE, it's cool. But if I send it to EI, I may have a little bit of problem because it is not completely an engineering paper. Now, conference paper. The conferences are where you go and then express yourself, show to other researchers what you have done. It does not go through a rigorous peer review system, but your review will be based on what you tell people during the conference or the ideas that you share. So normally, some fields like the security and all those fields, they even like to send their papers to conferences than even the journals, because during the conferences, for instance, like 5G or 4G, that is where you are going to battle. That is where you are going to show that your 5G architecture is good or blah, 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 blah. And these are the, so you have more argument there. It doesn't go through rigorous peer review like in the journals. So there is no, I don't want to give you the, what do you call it, the book definition of SCI and SCI. So I hope I have explained it well for you, Mr. David.
Okay, so I think, Doc, I think there are more questions in the chat box. So Mr. Nketia from Taiyuan says, please, can you send your paper to more than one journal?
No, you cannot send your paper to more than one. That is an academic, how do I say it? It amounts to a criminal act, because when you send your paper to 2 journals, then you are trying to say that you are not sure of that first journal you submitted to, and therefore you are downplaying their credibility. So in most of the journals, at the end, they will say, when you are submitting, they'll say, they will let you sign, electronic sign. They will say, there is a statement like, I have not submitted this paper to any journal apart from this journal. Okay. If you are found of doing that, remember, they will withdraw your paper, or they will reject it outright. And they may put even a blocking list on your publication. So please never do that. It's a crime. It's an academic crime.
Okay. I guess Mr. Nketia has answered. So, Doc, more questions for you.
Yeah. Suppose you are in the field of computer science.
Hello, Doc.
Yeah.
With regards to the question you just answered, probably we should also clarify that maybe he wanted to find out whether you submit it at the same time. But I think you have answered that. But I also want to add that when you submit it to a journal and probably the journal declined to publishing your paper, then you can submit it to another journal.
Exactly.
Yes. So what Doc is trying to say is that you cannot submit it concurrently to 2 different journals.
Exactly. exactly.
Yeah, but if
Of
you
course,
submit it to a journal and maybe they reject it or something like that, then you can submit to another journal.
yes, 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 yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm. I see a question. Suppose you are in a field of computer science and focusing on security with an application in big data. Which indexing is appropriate? Okay. So here, I think the best one will be SCIE, because here you have combined the scientific approach with engineering, and so it will be appropriate. But also, if you submit it to SCI, it will also not spoil anything. But remember, I think that your rejection in SCI will be much higher than when you submit it to SCIE. Akosia Nanjin.
Okay, so we have Ejesa again. His hand is up. Ejesa, okay, please, you can ask your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doc, for your presentation. And I want to chip in something concerning the conference. Like
Okay.
you made mention of like it being not or it doesn't go through a rigorous scrutiny as compared to the SCIs and then the expand ones. Yeah, but also from my experience and from our school. Okay, so we have some conferences which are like well known here in China. Like it's under the China, I think China Computer Federation, CCF. When it comes to
yeah.
very good. And those conferences are they have categories. We have category A, B, and C. And for instance, if you look at the category A, it takes like 3 to 4 months for first response.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of rigorous scrutiny that you mentioned, if you can break it down a little bit, because I know that journals that within 3-4 weeks, you can get your first response back.
Yes.
But these conferences are like so they are so high that it takes like 3 months. I mean, minimum is especially the the CCFA. It takes a minimum 3 months for the first response.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I understand what you're talking about. So I think, well, when I say it doesn't go through rigorous peer review, is that for some, like you are saying, some of the journals, for instance, the group of conferences that you just mentioned, I know these conferences, when your paper is accepted, they move it to a journal. Okay, so in that case, your paper will be sent to peer review. Do you get me? Your paper will be sent to peer review. But if you are asked to come and do a presentation based on your paper poster, okay, then the kind of scrutiny you will have compared to when it is sent to a peer review will be very low. So I'm not saying that conferences don't have a peer review, but the rigorosity or the way it's been rigorously checked, okay, is much higher in journals. But if your conference, like the one you mentioned, I know the one you mentioned, they are very high. So they rather send it to a peer review, and then after it has been accepted, they move your paper to a certain journal. So that is what I know. But it is not, when I say it doesn't go through rigorous peer review, it doesn't mean it is not good. It is good, but the compared, I'm just giving you a comparative analysis. That's why you find some schools some schools will never want you to submit your paper to a conference. Why? Because they have made their mind that they would rather want your paper to be peer reviewed than to just go and then defend. Yeah, so that's what I mean.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. Okay, so I see Mr. Zacchaeus. Mr.
Yeah,
Ejesa, if you're not asking a question, kindly lower your hand. Okay, thank you. Mr.
yeah,
Zacchaeus,
I'm
please, you
asking
have
a
the,
question.
yes, please answer your ask your question.
I just want to also get myself clarified just with what my brother just talked about. With regards to the conference papers and then the journals, I want to know between these two, which one has a greater impact or a greater value when you are publishing. So which
So
of them do we consider to have a much impact than the other?
So this is a very tricky question. So if you remember, I mentioned that some schools, for instance, in like the schools from the security, computer security, who are working on maybe something like telecommunication and all those things, their focus is on the industry. Their focus is on the industry. So they would rather like you to go to a conference and then present your idea. Okay. So, but a journal is assumed that we assume that when you send your paper to a journal, it anonymously goes to a peer who we think that has immense knowledge about the field you are studying. And the person will take 2 or 3 months to go through your paper and then mark it. You understand? So some professors or some schools will say, okay, we believe that when your paper goes through that system, then it means, and it gets published, then it means that it is well fitted to be published. But for a conference, like I said, it depends on the field where you are. Like a conference is like, if your conference doesn't push your paper to a journal, that's what I'm talking about. If your conference doesn't push your paper to a journal, that conference is just for you to explain what you have done. And therefore, in my opinion, in the sciences, I would consider a peer review more, well, for the lack of better word, I would say a peer review would be more appreciated in terms of quality than when you send it to a conference. Because in the conference, that rigorous check and all those things might not happen. Some of them even ask you to come and have a poster explanation. So you go there, you submit your abstract, and then you go and defend, and then it gets accepted. Fine. So even you can see in our requirement, like for UESTC, it states that if your conference paper is category A, then you need, I don't know, for recently, you need some number, okay? But then if it's SCI, you also need some kind of number, which might be even maybe lower than when you have a conference. So that notion is there. However, let me make it clear again. It depends on the what do you call it? The field where you are. If your field is industry specific, they will always want you to submit it to a conference. And I think it will be a high conference. And then if it gets accepted, they might even consider it moving it to a journal. That is it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's like our time is fast spent. We would like to share the contact of the speakers, okay, so that because I believe there are more questions to be asked with regards to this seminar, but we would like to also share the contact of the speakers so that you can contact them directly and channel your particular questions to them so that they can get answered, because our time is fast spent and I believe most people are already off. So once again, I would like to hand over to the chairman of the academic committee, Dr. Kluger Brown, to give his closing remarks, and we bring the program to a close. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me take my water. Yeah, so I thank everyone for joining into our program. This has been the second time we met like this, and I think we have gained some level of knowledge with regards to research, because we know that that is the reason, the main reason why we are here and studying. And from even what Professor said, we should, when we are picking a research, we should consider whether that research is relevant in our own countries. This is a very strong and I would say it's a bitter truth. So, you know, we always pick topics and then we go into a research, we finish the research, we go home and it's like, we cannot apply it anywhere. And that is maybe the reason why we cannot realize the importance of our research that we do outside. And so I thank everyone for joining in. And if you have any problem, you can contact all those involved, all those who will give you information after this program. Contact them, and then I believe that all of the presenters also have are open to further questions. And what I would say finally is that I hope that you will use these things that we have talked about, and then we are going to schedule um, another meeting, another seminar that will be
Hello. It appears your screen is frozen, dog. I don't know if it's just my point, but we can't hear you. Hello, dog. Maybe you have to log out and log in again. Hello. I think Doc is having a technical challenge, I guess. Hello. Doc, can you hear me? Can you hear me, please? Oh, okay. Okay, so I think Doc will just readjust and join us again. But while we wait for him, I would like to call on Mrs. Mariama Abdullah.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, Miss Quindels, am I being heard?
Yes, please, you're audible. So please.
I think I'm to give the vote of thanks, right?
Yes.
Or should I wait for Doc to give his final presentation, or I should proceed? Because I think he didn't. Come again.
We can't hear. I don't know if you can hear him, but I can't hear him. Okay, he just left. So, okay, maybe just hold on a minute. Let's see if he can.
All right. But can you hear me?
Perfectly clear.
Okay, so let's give Doc the opportunity to wrap up. Then I come in.
All right.
All right, thank
you. So while we wait for Doc, I would like to call on Mr. Kingsley. Mr. Kingsley, if you are still here with us. to maybe give us one or two takeaways. Mr. Kingsley.
Yeah, hello.
Okay, so Mr. Kingsley, so can you give us one or two takeaways while we wait for Doc to join us again?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. So Doc is
Oh,
here.
Doc is here. So maybe
yes.
Doc, you can take over.
Doc is here.
Then
Okay.
I will.
So Doc, please take. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Doc,
So
please.
I was just saying that I'm really happy that people joining in this program, and I wish that we will continue this way. For instance, certain things that we've heard today are very revealing, especially when the professor said that when we are choosing our research topics, we should consider home. We should consider whether it is relevant home. This is a bitter truth, and I think that if we all consider this, it's going to help us in a long way. And I also think that most of the all the presenters will be available for any questions after this program, and I know that they are willing to help us. And so whenever there is a program like this, we should try as much as possible to contribute, to avail ourselves, and also to learn. And I would say that there is going to be another program like this, and I hope that when such the day comes, we will have this number of people joining in and then learning. Thank you very much, and I thank everyone for coming.
Thank you too, Doc. Thank you too for availing yourself. I am always excited when we worry you and you don't. You don't give us any form of cold shoulder. For me, I'm always glad that each time we worry you, you're always available. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Kingsley, please, can you just give us maybe a word or two? Takeaway, maybe some takeaway.
Yeah, so just like everybody has said, I think two most important things will be, let's say, for example, Professor said we shouldn't be too ambitious. So try to finish the requirements of your institution, and then you can shoot for the moon. I think that would be one of the best things you can ever do to help yourself. Don't go too wide. Don't go too far into something you don't really understand. And using myself as an example, yes, it's possible to convince your professor if you're not comfortable with a certain topic, you can change it. And professors will, of course, you have to do some defense about what you intend to do. And mostly what happens is you have to fight your way through to completion because they might have no idea about what you're doing. But what they can do to help will be to give you the guidelines and to put certain things in order to sail you through. And as our brothers also cited, those in computer sciences, so the CCF papers, like the conferences, they are in turn, most of them are more difficult to even publish or to get into than even our normal journals. Yeah, our SCI journals. So you have to be careful. Sometimes you have, let's say, for example, those doing NLP, ACL, you can have about 8,000 applications in a single conference year, and they need only 800. So although your paper might be good, but maybe you are the 1,000th person according to ranking, it will be rejected. And there will be all sort of, we are sorry and other things. So getting papers at those places will be good, but try to finish your academic, your institution's requirements first, and then you can shoot for that. And with that one, you have to do it as soon as possible. And I think I think the NUGS executives will also give certain tools like using the LaTeX and the overleaves and other things later in order to help us do some fast tracking in some things to do and some things not to do. But I think the best way to do is to ask the NUGS officials. If you have any question to verify whether your journal is good or is bad, or how to start it and everything, you can still reach back to them and they can redirect you to us. But saying something short about what I delivered, your argument is very, very important. You have to make sure you put a very solid claim and give very, very solid evidence into backing your claim. And when readers are reading, or the officials are marking your paper or your reference or anything, they feel sorry to even deny you that they wouldn't publish your paper. Get your artwork on point. Give your drawing to somebody who knows how to draw. Let them draw it well. If you can pay to do photoshopping and other things, do it. Get it right from the day one. Don't just put any tables which are crooked and other things, copy and paste, and maybe you skew it to the left, or no, get it on point, make it as standard as possible. And these journals and the editors will see your paper, even though it's rejected, they'll give you second consideration. So all these things go into the writing, the visuals too. So that's what I can say. And for sometimes, and I will use myself as an example, those in computer sciences, sometimes you have to go forth to even create a website and to trying to give justification of what you have done. So creating a website, putting data on it, collecting data and other things are a norm for certain projects. So you have to be able to go there. And I think if you contact the NUGS officials, they will direct you to the right people. Yeah. Secretary. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Mrs. Mariama Abdullah, kindly take over and give us the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dales. We can all attest that it has been a night of experience sharing and very, very insightful. So we thank God for a successful program, and I would like to express my profound gratitude to our guest speaker, Professor Sunday Banajuri, for making time out of his busy schedules to be with us this evening, and Mr. Kingsley and Jack for a wonderful presentation. I believe we all took something out of whatever thing that they presented to us. And then we are looking forward that we have such seminars of this kind. I would like to express my profound gratitude to all participants for joining us this evening, and also to thank the academic committee. Mr. Chairman, more grace to your elbow. Thank you so much for coming up with this educative and insightful program seminar. And to our executives, thank you very much. Keep on with the great work, and then we are looking forward that we anticipate that we would have series of this educative program. A lot has happened this evening, so I believe we are all tired. I wouldn't take much of our time. Thank you so much to all of you, and have a wonderful evening and enjoy your weekend. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you to Mrs. Mariama Abdullah. So I would like to call on Miss Juliana Mantebia. Miss Juliana Mantebia, are you here? Hello, Miss Juliana Mantebia. Madam Secretary.
Hello.
Okay, please can you give us the closing prayer? Thank you.
Okay. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for a successful program. Father, Lord, as we retire to bed, we pray that you, Lord, will protect us throughout the night. And as we wake up in good health, we'll never forget to give you all the praise and adoration. We thank you for making us learn so much tonight, and we pray that we'll be able to use it in the course of our studies here in China and wherever we find ourselves. We pray and commit the rest of the week and then the next week that we will enter into your care. We pray that may you make it a successful one, and that whatever that we wish to have. May you help us to be able to gain it. These are many things we ask through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So I would like to thank everyone for coming, and have a lovely night, and see you another time for such a great program. Good night. Bye.